Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today, whether you're tuning in live or catching up on demand. We're really happy to have you join us. My name is Sarah Chabot. For those of you that don't know me, I'm COO at SIA 365, and I'll be one of your hosts today. My co-host today is Joey from Marvum. Joey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for this opportunity, Sarah, and great to be here together with Microsoft and Rachel. My name is Joey Koch, and within Mavim, I'm a VP Alliances.
Brilliant. Thanks, Joey. And we have a very special guest with a sticker wall behind her, who both Sia and Marvum are so proud to work alongside with at Microsoft. Rachel Profit. Rachel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. And I always love to do inclusive and accessible introductions. So again, my name is Rachel Profit. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a white woman with long red hair that's down today, and I'm wearing a blue blouse. I'm in my office with my epic sticker wall behind me. And I'm a principal program manager at Microsoft responsible for business process excellence. I've been with Microsoft for about 5 years, but I've been working in the Dynamics 365 space for more than 20 years.
That's brilliant, Rachel. Every time I listen to one of your introductions, I learn something new about you. It's great. So why have we joined forces today to talk to you? So the three of us regularly work together, and we all share a common focus. A focus we know is front of mind for many partners. It's delivering projects more efficiently with less risk and better outcome. Whilst Guide 365 and Marvum have built platforms that can support these challenges, we want to focus today on how a business process first approach can make a genuine difference. So if I bring up our agenda today, we've got 30 minutes, so we haven't got loads of time. We've got quite a lot to cover. But firstly, we're going to explain what a business process means, what it means to Microsoft, and then we'll look at how a business process approach helps you overcome some of your partner challenges that you might be facing. We're going to end today with some practical steps on how to adopt the business process catalogue. We don't have a huge amount of time, as I mentioned, but please feel free to drop questions in the chat as we go, and one of the team will respond. So, as I mentioned, we're all here today to talk about business process. Digital transformation is often associated with technology, but the real power of that technology is actually optimization and transformation of our business processes. I think there'll be quite a few people on this call that have heard me say this a million times, but you can sell the perfect project and you can implement it beautifully, but if the user does not use it the way that you want them to use it, it has all been for nothing. And essentially that's what business process is. This slide illustrates the end-to-end journey of business operations, from the very first concept market right through to financial reporting. It's a representation of every part of the organization is connected by business process. The areas in blue are some of the areas that we've seen that really come out of a project that is focused on business process. So standardization and best practice, bringing consistency across the organization, and risk management. It helps to identify and mitigate risk earlier. And I think this will be a theme that you'll see in our webinar today. What business process enables is more people in the room when those decisions are being made, because of the nature of the process and the fact that it's not modular. And what that means is that you are mitigating risk. That also means efficiency and productivity. It enhances that cross-functional collaboration, and it ultimately accelerates that digital transformation. So I don't know if either of you want to add anything to that. I guess just trying to explain the overall benefit of that business process approach. It all makes.
I'd like to say, because I love what you said, Sarah. Mm-hmm. It's ERP, CRM, technology implementations are not the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. And it's so critical. I think like businesses, right, they already speak the business language. They understand their own business. And when you come to the business and speak their language, it's much easier to have a conversation about business process transformation than it is a technology transformation. Technology is just the tool that we use to achieve it.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant. And I'm glad you feel that way, Rachel, because the next slide is that Microsoft feel this way. So why is Rachel on this call? It's because Rachel's been beating this drum for Microsoft through the business process catalog. So Jerry, I don't know if you want to kick us off on this slide.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, not a problem. Oh, yeah. So yeah, that's also the reason why we love to work together with Microsoft, and especially Rachel as the program lead for the business process catalog. As Rachel just mentioned, yeah, technology in itself is not the transformation. It's the work that the people do, and that's the process. So the beauty about the business process catalog is that it's really helping companies and business and IT departments to have a common language for those standardized processes that companies basically cross the border all have, and that's what I like about the business process catalog, and really the focus to help companies enable that technology faster, basically, with the business process catalog, which is fully embedded. We embedded that completely in our technology, because we see a lot of companies and partners struggling to get up to speed fast when they are running these transformation programs.
Okay. So Rachel, for those that are on this call that don't know what the Microsoft Business Process Catalog is, they've obviously can see some stats and information on the slide now in terms of what it is, but could you just provide a brief kind of overview of what the process catalog is?
Absolutely. It's my baby. I've been working on this for a couple of years now. We released that initial version back in October of 2023, and we've been updating it every quarter since then. It is a hierarchy of business processes, and we have 15 end-to-end business processes that are broken down into 4 levels. So we break each of those 15 end-to-end processes, like order to cash, source to pay, record to report, and so on, down into what we call areas. And those areas then break down further into the actual business processes. Each business process is then broken down further into what we refer to as scenarios. And those scenarios are the different ways that Dynamics 365 or other Microsoft technologies support that business process. And at that level 4, we've got more than 2,000, I think close to 3,000 different scenarios that we support those business processes. We started publishing flow diagrams for all of those level 3 processes earlier this year. We've got more than 400 already available, and we expect to be finished with all of our level 3 processes in our May release of the catalog. And the reason we created this is because it really is a core part of Success by Design. We wrote a chapter in our implementation guide called Process Focused Solutions. And one of the things that we teach is that you need to take a process focused approach to your implementation, starting at sales all the way through post go live. And the statement at the top, it's a power statement. Everything Dynamics 365 does is about enabling business processes, right? And everything like that the business does, like if you were a worker in a company, everything you do is a business process. And you use various tools and technologies to help you achieve that. And another power statement, right, about to come as we kind of transition into this age of AI, where we're all trying to like figure out where we can use copilots and create agentic experiences. You cannot automate a business process you don't understand. And that's why it's so important. And it is a fundamental step, right, in our implementation portal. And we continue to bring more and more features and functionalities. And we've got lots of great plans for later this year. You're going to see more improvements in our implementation portal. But we're trying to provide to customers and partners guidance that helps make your implementations easier, and that starting point that you can then build on. Every business and every organization is unique, and we're not oblivious to that, but we want to give you a good foundation to start from so that you're not starting from ground zero when you start trying to think about your business processes and how you're going to optimize them. When you hear Charles Lamanna talk about AI and the direction that we're going here at Microsoft, he says every single business process will have an agentic experience. And you can't do that if you don't have a foundation of like, what are the business processes that I do and that my organization needs to optimize.
Yeah, you can't do that by module. You can't do that by, you can't do that finance supply chain versus CE. You have to do it as one way. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
The products, modules, and features are all secondary to the business processes. They are just tools, right, that help you optimize or implement a particular business process in your organization. And so by starting with this catalog, we think that we have a really good starting point for any organization. And you're always going to have to extend our catalog or tweak the catalog to make it work for your specific industry and your specific business. But you don't need to reinvent the wheel where it doesn't make sense, right? We don't need to transform GL journals. Like we need to transform other business processes that lead to GL journals. But if we can optimize that front end process, a lot of times the tail end of that process gets reimagined and more automated and makes it easier, right?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Rachel. And I guess that leads nicely into like, why is it so important right now? So I guess, Joe, you've got a few points, haven't you? But I guess there may be some people on this call that think, people have talked about process for a long time. We talked about different process catalogs, named different things. So why, if a partner is on this call thinking, is this really something that I need to go and look at right now? Why is it important right now?
I kind of said it on the last slide, but I'll say it again. It's kind of one of my most favorite hero statements right now, is that you cannot automate a process you do not understand. And doing so likely leads to suboptimal results. And so I think, right, when we listen to Charles Lamanna and Satya talk about like the direction of Microsoft and like what we're doing, companies need to find ways to optimize, right? They're all trying to cut costs and figure out, how are we going to leverage these co-pilots? Well, I go, you're asking the wrong question if you're saying, how are we going to leverage these co-pilots, these agentic experiences? You should be asking questions that are like, how are we going to, and it's the business objective, right? How are we going to cut costs? How are we going to increase customer satisfaction? These are goals that every organization already has. So like, listening to whatever the goal of your company is that starting point.
Yeah.
And I think when you start there, then you can focus in to where you're going to get ROI and you're going to get value out of the solutions that you're implementing. AI is here, like it's not going away. And you hear some like big things from Charles, from Mike Ehrenberg, like you hear them talking about like how like ERP is going away. Well, yes, but the business processes are not going away. We still have to bring technology to support those business processes. And that's why I think
you've still got to relate it to the customer. And I actually think it's even more important in the world of AI, because sometimes in the world of AI, it's so far from where the customer is that actually the business process is actually that bit that's in the middle of the two. So Joey,
Yeah, I think to add specifically to that, from my point of view, that's what I like about the business process catalog as well. That Rachel already mentioned that it sets that foundational layer, but it also supports in having one common language, one set of definitions for that for everybody within the organization. Because sometimes you see happening in organizations that business and IT, they speak about the same thing, but they have a different definition for it. And with that business process catalog, you have that single definition, basically for that foundational layer within your company, and that really supports and accelerates driving that transformation instead of just optimizing your processes within your organization. Because for me, there's a difference between optimizing your as is processes compared to really doing some things that is transformational. And then that business process catalog is there to really start becoming agentic and adopting AI in its best way.
Yeah, and I think you've included a little screenshot for us, haven't you, Joe, just so we can actually see an example of one of the business processes.
Yeah.
Which is great. And I think we've kind of covered some of these points, but I really wanted to make the point, like, I know we've talked about business process before, but as Rachel said, like it is where Microsoft are going, and it is where the partners are going, and with that, it is where the customer expectations are going as well. And I think that the customer expectations will drive this. And we've made a joke there. Microsoft's talking about it nearly as much as AI. Rachel has joined a business process webinar and talked about AI, so maybe it goes both ways.
You can't talk about one without the other, right? Yeah, and yeah. I made a joke earlier, right, that I show up to Charles, speeches and presentations, and I like to bring my little ticker and be like, how many times did he say business process? And I'm like, see, everything, right? The business does, we said it right on our first slide, right? Everything the business does is about a business process, and everything Dynamics 365 does is about a business process. And if it's not, then I'm not like, what is it? You're just building software for nothing. I'm like, I don't know, like that doesn't make sense.
And like, give the partners on the call, Rachel, some reassurance. They make this investment now because it is a change for a partner to change the way, and we know there are challenges, and we're going to go through some of that on this webinar. Where do you see this going over the next 12 months with business process and Microsoft?
Yeah, we're investing pretty heavily in business processes and AI, right? So you've heard Charles say, probably if you've watched any of his presentations, that every business process will have an agentic experience. I don't think we'll be done with that in a year. But I think what we're specifically doing around the catalog is we continue to enhance it. We expect to be done with our level 3 process flows in our May release. We are expanding workshops. We continue to add more attributes to the catalog to make it easier to use, easier to filter down to what makes sense for your business. And we're bringing more capabilities into our implementation portal. Our hope is that by bringing the tools and bringing the content that we're bringing and publishing out into the implementation portal, like, we can bring you the right information at the right time in your project for both the customer and the partner, depending on what your role is, that we can bring the right content, the right information to enable you to do the right thing and to have the information you need at your fingertips. Sometimes it's hard to navigate the Microsoft landscape of Learn documentation and all the resources that we have available. And so we're hopeful that the implementation portal makes that easier, and we guide you through that process of implementing and bringing you the information, the resources you need at the right time.
Brilliant. That's great. Thanks, Rachel. that's really what we wanted to cover in terms of setting the scene. So the business process and the Microsoft Business Process Catalog, and that was really interesting. Thanks, Rachel. What we just wanted to cover was just what's the value to the partners of using the Business Process Catalog. A lot of this we've heard, but I guess we've heard it from a solution perspective of AI. What we just wanted to talk about now were, why is it going to help you as a partner, not necessarily your overall implementation, although they're completely linked. So my first slide here is around some of the partner challenges that we typically see, and definitely partner challenges that I saw when I was in the partner channel. So the top lines are really what you're looking to achieve. So improving the workforce efficiency. On a typical implementation that is module structured, it tends to be different modules and different estimation processes across different teams. So this could be could be finance supply chain, it could be business central, it could be CA, but you have different modules, different consultants, all estimating different ways, different estimate workbooks across different applications, and one customer who wants one estimate. Limited visibility to end-to-end processes, so things falling between the gaps, which links into the next one. So obviously partner challenge, you want to reduce the time. Sorry, Rachel.
One thing I want to add there is I think what you were saying is the idea that a module or a feature or a product doesn't necessarily equal a working end-to-end process. And we oftentimes we get to that testing phase just before go live, and scope creep happens, right? Because we didn't, we had all these different puzzle pieces, but we didn't necessarily put them all together to make a working end-to-end process. And so then we have to go back to the drawing board to make the end-to-end process work. And it causes, those time delays and those estimates were wrong. It's all kind of interconnected, but
which links into that next one. So something that I saw, the time after the workshops to recap what's being said. So you'd have a finance consultant in the finance workshops, or you'd eat from the customer side, the finance director joins the finance workshops, and then you have this free of charge time that's not been planned for, when the consultants and the customers have to relate what's been said in those finance workshops before they can go into the inventory workshops, because obviously it is so linked. Complex implementations with customizations that perhaps might not be needed if that you had that visibility of the end-to-end process, and thinking about ways of being able to meet requirements outside of the scope of that particular module. It's hard to take the time to capture that best practice, which is a constant partner challenge. And then ultimately the change management side of this. So, you've got to think about the customer and what I said at the start. If the user doesn't use it, then there's no point. And that at the heart is why business process to me really works, and why I'm a big believer in the business process approach. So how does a business process approach help all of those? Essentially, from a partner point of view, if you have a process-led workshop and a process-led implementation, then you may require multiple consultants to be in those same workshops, which you may think is more expensive, but remember that free of charge time that you do have to do to recap, and the design review time. If you have your finance consultant and your trade and logistics consultant in the same business process workshop, and the customer has those people, it's going to be a much more efficient outcome, and there's going to be much less rework. And that's kind of an overarching piece on this slide. So Rachel, Joey, I don't know if you want to add anything, but that's again.
I think you can have a much more effective conversation. I see it a lot of times, and even back in the days when I used to be on the partner side and doing implementations, or on the customer side, when you bring the right people into the conference room, right, even if it's virtual, like when you bring them all together, you can have a much more effective conversation, and like you learn about what each other, like what you do. I think it creates this sense of collaboration within the organization, which help drives morale, which then helps drive that adoption and change management. And you understand, like, even if I have to change my portion of the process, and maybe that's a little bit different or painful or whatever, I understand the value of like what this other part of the team or the company is getting, and how that drives up to my company goals and visions. And I think it's just a much more effective conversation, and oftentimes those conversations can become shorter, right? So I think we found that in case studies that we've done at Microsoft with partners who have actually leveraged our catalog, you know, to do this process. And the customer is saying, like, this makes a lot of sense. Like, we didn't realize that we were that disconnected because they were operating in these departmental silos.
It just like, it's a fundamental part of change management. Engage stakeholders as many as possible together. That's essentially what we're saying. But I think like these slides just try and relate it just to you as the partners, and really like show, you know, don't just look at the fact that you've got two consultants in the same workshop and see that, you know, actually look at the amount of time and effort you're having to do with those separate consultants having to catch up. I'm just conscious of the time, so we'll move on. We did want to make the point, you know, we talked about success by design, and Rachel's talked about it, and Joey's mentioned it. And obviously, success by design isn't typically towards kind of the SMB Business Central space. I've seen some brilliant, you know, use cases of SMB partners using business process. Whilst what Rachel's talking about is finance supply chain orientated at the moment, Rachel, you know, it does not stop a Business Central partner getting the benefits that we're talking about in terms of you talking to the customer in business process language that is relatable to them, in terms of you putting multiple consultants in and being able to run a program this way. And I've said there, like, I really think it makes you stand out from the crowd in that market.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe just to add one quick thing, like adding more tagging and labels to the catalog, so it's easier to tell what applies to Business Central and what applies to finance and operations apps, is one of the things that's on our roadmap. So I think we're only going to keep getting better in this space.
And as I said, like, we've got partners that use it, and they definitely see the benefit. So it's definitely something for forward. I'm conscious of time, so we'll just move on. We just wanted to just very high level talk about the different phases of your typical implementation, and how business process can be used in all of them. So obviously the Dynamics 365 implementation starts with a sales phase. So how are you using, and that, I guess, our biggest tips and tricks for using the business process catalog in the sales stage. It's a high level view at that stage, but your focus there is making it as relatable to the customer as possible. And I've pulled out a few examples. Like, it's about having the business process context and having those requirements associated to it. And it's about understanding those pain points and making sure that you're then utilizing the information that is available from Microsoft to support that process. So Rachel, I know there was something that you really wanted to say today, that you wanted to talk about the understanding the pain points and the demo side of it.
Yeah, well, I think you have to understand, like, the business chat. Like, in Success by Design, we say you have to start with like the business goal, the business challenge. And it's so critical that you do that, because if you go off and you implement technology that doesn't actually lead to an ROI that accrues to that business goal or objective that you're trying to meet, you wind up failing, right? And you wind up spending lots of money doing things that don't actually accrue value to the organization. And then it's hard to get budget to do that next project. So I think like being super crisp on those goals and then being able to map those to the business processes that they go with, I think it also helps shorten the sales cycle, right? If you really talk about like what the business goal is and here's how the technology supports doing that thing, and here's the types of benefits that you're going to see from it. I think that's really what's key.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what we've seen. So, you know, asking the customer what their main pain points are, and then being able to create a business value assessment that shows them how you're actually going to meet those pain points through that business process is so valuable because it's relatable to them. And then what I have done is that's just a screenshot of one of the Microsoft business process pitch decks that are available. You know, make the most out of them. They're available to download. You'll be able to navigate through it from some of the links that we're going to share towards the end. They have them by a business process. They are really powerful. So if the customer's saying they've got certain pain points and you're not sure how to talk about business process in relation to them, make sure you are using the pitch decks that are available.
Yeah. And demos are coming very soon to go with those pitch decks.
There you go.
Even better.
Brilliant. And then I would say that there is a challenge around talking to the customer and business process, and then structuring yourself so that you can resource against a business process. It is very different. So more than happy to support anyone that needs to kind of make that shift in terms of how they get to the next phase, which Joe, you're going to just talk through, aren't you? It's the implementation part.
So the implementation part, that's where in our partnership we come into play. We as Mavim, and I think Rachel already mentioned that, it starts with the business goals, objectives, looking at your architecture, and connect all these things with your business process catalog, and that's basically what we do. And as much as I love the business process catalog, of course, it's a foundational layer, and in especially in those organizations, it's not only that foundational layer, it's more than that foundational layer that you need to look into when you are running a transformation program. And that's basically where our technology really comes into play and starts to add value connected to that business process catalog to basically facilitate the conversation that you started at the beginning of your implementation journey, to have that one common definition and language, which is the business process catalog. That's what we try to do as Mavim, as much as possible, by facilitating basically a process modeling platform to facilitate the communication and collaboration, and basically set a foundation for further continuous improvement within your organization, to really start leveraging all those great things that is coming to market now with AI, and in the future maybe even other things as well, which we are not even aware of yet today, all of us across the globe. So
and to emphasize, right, businesses are constantly changing, and therefore your processes have to be constantly changing. And that's why having process governance in place that helps you model and manage and connect the dots between the process and the technology, I think is so critical.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the really key thing is that it runs throughout. Like, that's the journey, isn't it? And it's you do it in the sales phase. You understand those pain points. You understand the requirements that sit underneath that high-level business process. You relate it that way, and then the customer and the internal partner sees that, then handed over to the implementation phase. It's the same process, but it's more detail. And then once you go, you can obviously use it for the test scripts. Like, it's how much time is that going to save a partner with the UAT? The fact that it's a business process and you've already got your test scripts ready to go. It's brilliant. And then what you're saying, Rachel, there, it's like, after you've gone live, it's continuous, and you keep it updated. So it's throughout that life cycle.
Yeah. So how do you see the impact of change? So what's the impact of change by having new releases that Microsoft is bringing to market, having new and adopting new technology? So maybe sometimes organizations make a decision, and we all know to go for other technologies on top of the Microsoft platform, and really seeing what's the impact of all of it, and that's basically also what we try to facilitate with our technology to basically facilitate the entire
which leads nicely in like why like this is what we've tried to do at Guide 365 and Marvin. So that process that we've ran through, the sales stage for us would be Guide 365 Discover. We do exactly what we just talked about. It's about understanding and asking the customer, what are your pain points? What are your objectives? And then we have the Microsoft Business Process Catalog in there, which can all map with the business value assessment. So it enables you to really focus your sales process on the bit that actually matters to that customer. And then obviously Marvin, Joey, you've got that bit that you've just spoken about, that business process mapping and the modeling. And then obviously then it's the actual Guide 365 design with the functional requirements. I'm just going to skip through this slide. I'm conscious that we've already taken you over. We wanted to end on this slide. So how to align with Microsoft. So hopefully we have won you over. If you are on this call and you are not yet using a business process approach, we hope we have persuaded you to take some next steps, but perhaps you're not sure what those next steps are. So we put some practical steps on. The first step is understanding the Microsoft Business Process Catalog. If you follow the QR code or the two links that are on the website, you can download the Business Process Catalog very easy. There's an AKA link. It's literally just /Business Process Catalog, and you can download it. Then obviously, if you are using your own process catalog already, you need to go through a process of mapping that existing process catalog to Microsoft. If you're not using a process catalog, then you need to obviously map more so your process in terms of the modules. There are applications available to help you do that, and there's lots of support available. I'm more than happy to help anyone that needs support mapping to the Microsoft Business Process Catalog. Engage stakeholders. I think we've said this a lot on this call. It's key internally and then with the customers as well. But obviously, there's no point adopting the Business Process Catalog in one area of your business. You can't just do it for one application. You need to do it finance, supply chain, and CE, not just one or the other. Adopt, adjust, and then optimize the process. Make it work for you. Have that pilot, run through it, and then adapt it to how you need to work internally. Then obviously documentation and training internally, and then monitor. So what I wanted to end on today was really just a key takeaway. So Rachel and Joey, what's the one practical tip that you could give to a partner who's on the call today that we have persuaded to use the business process approach? What would you go and tell them to do as the next step?
I mean, download the catalog.
Like,
don't reinvent the wheel, right? Yeah, I mean, I think step one is, and we kind of said it here, but like download that catalog and, delete the rows that, like, even in its Excel format, right? Delete the Excel rows that don't make sense for your business and add any new rows that we might be missing that, do make sense for your business or your industry. Like at the very most fundamental level, like you have to start somewhere.
Yeah. Definitely. And Joey?
Yeah, I think Rachel already said some things about, you need to build in business process governance. And by building in business process governance, I immediately thought about partners and customers that are really successful. They have all built a center of excellence around business process governance within their organizations to really start adopting the way of working process-based, process-focused instead of their current way of working. So I would say make sure to also build a center of excellence around this topic.
Yeah, that's great. And I would just say, just don't start from scratch. That's not the advice today. So, there's a link there that Marvin was set up for us, the business process catalog follow-up. On there, you will see information on the business process catalog that you can download from Microsoft. There are platforms such as Guide 365 and Marvin that are available that enable you to actually go through the process and see the business process catalog in action and use it with your customers. So there's lots of tools and applications available that can support you on this journey. And with that, thank you very much for joining, everyone. If there was any questions, please just put them in the chat. If you're watching this on catch up, just keep putting them in the chat and we will make sure that people respond in touch. But Rachel, Joey, thank you both very much. That was really great. It was really great.
Thank you as well. Thank you as well, both. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank you,
Okay,
Rachel.
thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.